Good evening, everybody. One more time, good evening, everybody. What a beautiful sight to be back in wǝጡ øbʔaltx၀, right? And so, yeah, let's give our team a round of applause. It has been my pleasure since July 8th, 2012, to have been the UW's first tribal liaison. Also, since Thursday, March 12, 2015, I've been director of wǝጡ øbʔaltx၀. And thank you. However, since the 1st of October, I have been holding a new position. For those of you who don't know, I am now a PhD student at the Information School. Who would have thought a kid from wǝtë Montana, who was homeless, a survivor of domestic violence, a dropout, a drunk, who could do all of these things? You know, it's because of this place. Thank you. And I have no shame to any of that. I did it, I've earned it, and I've learned from it. And part of that learning was to find out whose land we're on. And I'm not here to discuss sovereignty. I am just here to practice as I've been taught. I am wǝtë øbʔaltx၀. I am wǝtë. I'm a citizen of the wǝtë Nation. I am an uninvited guest here on this Coast Salish territory. And it has been my honor to work with the tribes, recognized and unrecognized, to do acknowledgments. So what I'm going to do instead is I just want to thank the peoples, those tribes, the Muckleshoot, for allowing me to be here, to the Tulalip, for all the other unrecognized tribes as well. That's not my job, folks. That's not the university's job. And that's been the hardest part of doing this position, is to have to stand in front of people and get smashed by that wave. It's not my job, and it's none of our jobs. It's the federal government, so don't bother us anymore about it, all right? You see, now that I'm no longer getting a paycheck from the University of Washington, I'm paying the University of Washington, that I'm able to express it this way. I want to thank my teachers here in the front, Dr. Sheila, Dr. McCaffrey, Dr. Cote, Dr. Kause. Let's give them a round of applause. We've come a long way, and I'm really happy to be here and to do this introduction to my good friend, Dr. Cote. We always call her Dr. Cote because we want to make sure that we acknowledge and honor her work at Berkeley, at Simon Fraser, at all these places where Native First Nations women don't come from often. And now we're in a space that didn't exist until she got here. That's amazing. And it's just so much more amazing that we're able to do this in wǝጡ øbʔaltx၀, the facility that we all built together. We were supposed to do this on March 12th, 2020. That was the day that we were supposed to have this event. That was also the day the university closed. That was the day that the world stopped spinning for just a couple of weeks. We picked it back up, didn't we, folks? I'm proud to stand in front of you today, having come from that background I explained to you, to now sit here with these amazing doctors. And eventually, one day, I will be that doctor as well. I want to thank the Coast Salish peoples for being here. I want to thank our elected tribal council leader here, Leonard Forsman, chairman of the Suquamish Indian tribe. He is the one who really helped me to make that land acknowledgement that the University of Washington has approved in tribal consultation. And so, if you have any questions, not it. But again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here today. I want to thank the leadership for letting me be the tribal liaison for all of these years. I want to thank the team in the back who are with us through all the hardships, all the successes, and of course to you students. You matter more to us than anything else. We can go make more money somewhere else, but to see you graduate, to see you succeed, that's the most important thing, and I also want to acknowledge you. So thank you for that, and I think I'm introducing our Vice President, Ricky Hall. So, aho, Gashila, appreciate you.
Thank you, wǝtë. Thank you all for being here this evening. The Intellectual House is indeed a special place, and we are honored to hold tonight's lecture here. Good evening and welcome to the 16th Annual Samuel E. Kelly Distinguished Faculty Lecture. I am Ricky Hall, Vice President for the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity and the University Diversity Officer. At this time, I would like to also acknowledge some colleagues here who are in attendance, beginning with the 33rd President of the University of Washington, Dr. Anamari Cote. Welcome, President Cote. And although wǝtë introduced him, I also want to recognize a strong supporter, both of the Intellectual House, the university, our students, but also of me, a good friend, the Honorable Leonard Forsman, who is the chairman of Suquamish Tribes. Thank you, Lynn, for being with us this evening. And one of the things I've been doing lately, too, is really honoring past and those who were here at the beginning. And so I want to recognize Emil Petrie, who he was among those first activists here that led to the establishment of the Office of Minority Affairs. So thank you. We often have Kelly lecturers from past years join us. Given our current context, I don't know if we have any here, but are there any current Kelly lecturers with us? If so, please stand. Okay, I don't see any. Their names are on the back of the program, so please look and see who those distinguished folks are when you get a moment. As many of you may know, Dr. Sam Kelly was the founding vice president of the Office of Minority Affairs and a pioneer for diversity efforts on campus. For 6 years, he led one of the most responsive programs in the nation dedicated to providing access and success for American Indian and students of color at a major university. The innovative programs he developed to recruit and retain underrepresented and economically disadvantaged students almost 50 years ago continue to this day. This lecture series, named in Dr. Kelly's honor, acknowledges the work of distinguished UW faculty whose research focuses on diversity, equity, and social justice. This specific lecture was scheduled for last year and was be timed to celebrate the 5th anniversary of this space. We all know what has transpired these past 19 months that led to the postponement of this event. We are here now, and any day is a good day to recognize and celebrate what wǝtë, the Intellectual House, has meant and continues to mean to so many. And we are thrilled to be together this evening once again to hear from a distinguished expert faculty member here at the University of Washington. This year we are pleased to have Dr. Charlotte Coté as the Kelly Lecturer. And at this time, I would like to welcome Dr. Diane Million to the podium. Dr. Million received her MA in Ethnic Studies in 1988 and her PhD in Ethnic Studies from the University of California at Berkeley in 2004. Currently, Dr. Million is Associate Professor and Chair of American Indian Studies and an affiliated faculty member at the UW Canadian Studies Center, the Comparative History of Ideas program, and the English department at UW, where she teaches courses on indigenous politics, literatures, feminisms, and social issues. Her current research explores the politics of mental and physical health with attention to effect as it informs race, class, and gender in Indian country. She is the author of Therapeutic Nations, Healing in an Age of Indigenous Human Rights, as well as many articles, chapters, and poems. Please welcome Dr. Diane Millian to the stage.
Duenta, Cedra, Diane Millian, Tagatili Hensla, Ten Quintana, Yi Trentland. I am Diane Millian. I'm Tanana Athabascan. It's my great honor to be here with you tonight in Wethlerball. I just changed glasses. It is a great joy to introduce to you Dr. Charlotte Coté, an internationally known scholar in the field of American Indian, Alaska Native, and Indigenous Studies. I have the long pleasure of knowing Charlotte since 1996 as a friend and fellow student at Cal Berkeley, and since 2002 as a beloved colleague in American Indian Studies. Professor Charlotte Coté exemplifies our finest practices in American Indian and Indigenous Studies. She is a scholar who draws deeply from the teachings of her own Sishot Nuchanoth Nation, whose passion for justice and understanding includes all peoples. Dr. Coté brings a substantial range of knowledge and skills into her work, one that enriches her classrooms, the University of Washington campus, and the community beyond. This set of knowledge and skills exemplifies the practices this university seeks to put forward as diversity. Charlotte Coté is a recognized leader in her Nuchanoth community, where she has brought knowledge and healing to her extended families and her nation. She is a recognized leader among our communities of Indigenous and women of color all over the Pacific Northwest and beyond. Dr. Coté is part of the leadership that is bringing our Wethlerball, the intellectual house, into being on this campus. She has also brought together a collective Indigenous women scholars to give Wethlerball a signature event, the Living Breath of Wethlerball, a two-day gathering that showcases the ecological leadership of Indigenous nations from Alaska to New Zealand. Charlotte dreams big, and she acts on her dreams. Dr. Coté is a recognized leader in the Seattle American Indian community and a respected scholar among the coastal and Coast Salish communities, where she has the capacity and the connections to bring students with her into unforgettably intimate and powerful learning experiences with lands, peoples, and histories that make our region so vibrant. She is the highly praised author of Spirits of Our Wailing Ancestors, Revitalizing Makah and Nuchanoth Traditions. We eagerly look forward to her second book, A Drum in One Hand, a sockeye in the other, Stories of Indigenous Food Sovereignty from the Northwest Coast, a gift we hope to hold in our hands by this winter. It is a great honor to present to you Dr. Charlotte Coté, Basi, Anabasi.
Good evening, everyone. Uklama Slotis Mayolth, Histakshitla Tsumaas, Zisha Aksuma, Nuchano Hatin. My traditional name is Clotis or Clotis. It means carrying thunder. It comes from my whaling tradition. I am Zishot, which is one of the nations of the larger Nuchanoth Nation on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And I'm very, very happy to stand here today, and this is my first in-person event. It seems very strange to be looking at people and not Zoom boxes. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that the University of Washington and the larger Seattle area and the area known as Puget Sound is located in the traditional territories and the shared waters of the people that we recognize as Coast Salish. And I pay respect to their leaders, one that we do have here today, and I want to acknowledge the Honorable Len Forsman. It's really nice to see you here today. And I want to begin by just sharing a little bit about me. I am a food scholar, and my writing and research, as my friend and colleague Diane Millian said, does focus on traditional foods, excuse me, and revitalizing health and wellness in Northwest Coast Indigenous communities. And I look at that by thinking through how to decolonize not just our diets, but how health and wellness has to be looked at holistically and looked at through the lens of spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, as well as dietary wellness. I'm happy to say that for the last 10 years, I have been working on a manuscript, and as my friend and colleague Diane said, my new book is coming out, so I'm very, very excited about that. That's all I have to say. I was invited to give this talk in conjunction with the 5th anniversary of the wǝtë Intellectual House because of the work I have done, along with many others, in creating this very important space. I'm going to discuss how this project came to be, share a little bit about that journey, and, excuse me, and how the wǝtë fits into the larger discourse of indigenizing academic institutions. And then I want to bring this discussion back to, and to discuss how it connects to my research, my scholarship, and my position as a Tsisha Aksuma, a Tsisha woman. But I want to begin with a story. On October 16th, 2010, the House of Knowledge, which was our placeholder name for this project, for our project, we received the Dr. Samuel E. Kelly Award at the 16th Annual Multicultural Alumni Partnership, or MAP, Bridging the Gap Breakfast. The award acknowledged how our project would create an important space for recruiting and retaining Native students and would enhance educational opportunities for all students. As chair of the project, I was invited to accept the award, a beautiful plaque that recognized the work our team was doing. Many of us who were part of this project attended the awards breakfast, including a significant member of our team, Julian Argel, who passed away in July 2012. Julian worked as assistant to the UW Vice President for the Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. The event was held across the street from the location we chose for our House of Knowledge, which is the location we're in today. When the event ended, a group of us walked out together and stood across from the lot that was going to be the new home of our House of Knowledge that would become the wǝtë. We were all admiring the plaque and were passing it around to each other. Julian took the plaque, looked over at the lot, and said, "Well, we have a plaque, now we just need a wall to hang it on." And this is a photo from Viewpoints magazine in fall 2008, and that's Julian, I guess, yes, would be on the left of the screen, Denny Hurtado, who served as the Native Advisory Board chair at that time, myself, and then the co-chair of our advisory committee for the Intellectual House, the Honorable Ron Allen, from the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. In the fall of 2002, 1 year after I started my position at UW as an assistant professor in American Indian Studies, I attended a UW Native Advisory Board meeting. The NAB is made up of representatives from the regional, tribal, and urban communities who meet bi-monthly to share their input and advice on university programs and policies. At this meeting, we broke out into small groups, which discussed ways to build a strong Indigenous community here at UW. At my session, Julian, who I had just met, handed me a folder and said, "I think you need to oversee this project." And I was like, "What?" I opened the folder and there was information about the university's efforts in seeing a longhouse-style building built on the Seattle campus, a dream of many UW folks and local tribal members that began in the 1970s. Well, I'm Nuu-chah-nulth, and we are always up for a challenge. Little did I know at the time what a challenge it would be. I began reaching out to various people at UW to create a working group to get this project going and reignite this 30-year dream to have a space on campus for us Native peoples, and especially for our students. At this time, our students had a small room in the Ethnic Cultural Center. I reached out to and started working with the then Office of Minority Affairs Vice President, Rusty Barcelo. When Rusty left, Sheila Edwards-Lang, who is here today, was hired into this position, and our group began working with her. In 2004, the UW hired a new president, Mark Emmert, and we decided to invite him to a NAB meeting to share our project idea with him. President Emmert grew up in the Pacific Northwest and went to UW with many Native people who became leaders in our regional tribal communities. And I think, Len, didn't you go to school with Mark Emmert?
Crossed paths with him in the early 80s.
So in May 2006, we invited President Emmert to one of our meetings. Denny Hurtado, who was the chair of the NAB at the time, he and I gave President Emmert an overview of the project. After hearing our proposal, President Emmert said this was something we needed to do and that he would support it. But President Emmert told us we would have to find the money to build it. He did provide Sheila with some funds to move forward, and we began looking at site options and creating a working document that we could use to move the project forward. It was at this time our House of Knowledge project was placed on the UW Capital Projects list. In May 2007, we created a larger advisory committee consisting of tribal leaders and UW faculty, staff, and students, and held our first meeting on September 12th of that year. The chair of the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, as I mentioned, Ron Allen, and I served as co-chairs of this committee. Our committee saw the importance of having cultural guidance while we moved forward, and in 2008, we created our Elders Committee, who oversaw the protocol to make sure we moved forward in a culturally respectful way. And I have a photo here of some of our elders, our dear, dear elders, Lillian Chappelle and Alma Chastain, and Marilyn Wandry and Elaine Grinnell, and we had some others as well, but I believe these were the 4 initial elders on our committee. We chose our site, and in April 2009, we held a land blessing on the new site. We conducted a feasibility study and then moved forward with the process of an architect search. Out of this process, we hired Native architect John Paul Jones and his architectural team. Because of the uniqueness of the building site and that there's a 6-foot incline on this site, we decided to create a village concept with 2 buildings, with one building that would be a great hall where we could hold large events, which is this building, and another building for an administrative office, a student lounge, an elder space, and an art studio. And these are some of the photos that I took while we were throughout the years of us coming together. I think most of these photos are the internal working group. And then this is a photo of the model. We determined that this 2-building project would cost approximately $10 million. When Julian heard what the cost was going to be, he turned to us and said, "That's going to be a whole lot of fry bread sales." During this early process, we met with Upper Skagit tribal elder Toxablu, Vi Hilbert, who wanted to support our project by providing us with a name for this space that honored the Lushootseed language, the language of this area. Out of the name she gave to us, we chose wǝtë øbʔaltx၀, which translates to a place of intellectual activity. And to be honest, the way we chose the name, we picked the one that was the shortest, right, Sheila? And so we worked, and we worked, and we worked, and we reached out to folks, and we had numerous meetings with stakeholders, with tribal leaders, with community members, with state legislators, and on and on and on. And it was, to say the least, exhausting. But when our spirits were low, our elders would hold us up and give us so much wonderful support and guidance. And the students, many who worked so hard with us on this project, kept us going. They were all so passionate about what we were doing. There were many days when we thought this would never happen. Right, Sheila? It was stressful. A lot of the gray hair under all this dyed hair, which I've said so many times, most of it came from this project. But we stayed focused, and we stayed focused because of our students, and we kept going for them. And on October 13th, 2013, we had our groundbreaking ceremony. And this is a photo of Sheila and Patsy Whitefoot, who was the NAB chair at the time, President Young, Isak Sicha, oops, I missed one of your A's on your name, Ross, and myself. And that's just something that I wrote in the speech on that day. Well, when we finally raised enough funds, we decided to move forward with one of the buildings and to start with the large meeting hall, with this space. And construction began. And I've got a couple of photos here that I took. My office is in the Padelford building, so every day when I would leave the office, I would go out and check out what was happening. So I was able to capture a lot of the photos. I hope, oh yeah, they do show up here. So the photo on the top left, I think that was the first day that they actually started changing the space. This used to be a parking lot at one time, if many of you remember. And then this is when they were doing the interior and getting the interior ready. On March 6, 2015, a group of us who were part of the working group, as well as, I believe, one of the professors, I think Cynthia Updegrave is in here, who was teaching at the university in our department at the time. We were invited to pick up the key to our new home. And here we are. It was Julian's dream to walk through those doors. And in the beginning of this project's journey, he and I used to teach each other and say that by the time the wǝtë øbʔaltx၀was built, we would be in wheelchairs and we would be wheeling our way inside the building. Julian passed away a few years before we received the key, but we know he was here with us on that day. 1 week later, on March 12, 2015, phase 1 of our project was completed, and we opened the door to this beautiful space we are in today, the wǝtë øbʔaltx၀Intellectual House. The 30-year dream became a reality. So why did we and many people before us feel the need to create this space on campus? What purpose did we think it would serve? These were easy questions for our team to answer, but there were people on campus who did not understand this, and many people who did not support this project. Why did we feel it was important to create this space, to indigenize the University of Washington? Indigenizing academic institutions is not just an Indigenous issue, and it is not undertaken solely to benefit Indigenous students and faculty. Indigenization benefits everyone. We all gain a richer understanding of the world by including Indigenous knowledge and perspectives in our institutional practices. Increasing awareness of Indigenous cultures, histories, and traditions increases respect for different cultural realities, which impacts all students' critical thinking skills by broadening their understanding of different cultural worldviews. Indigenization can contribute to a more just world and counter the impacts of colonization by upending a system of thinking that has typically discounted Indigenous knowledge and history. So, what does it mean to indigenize academic institutions? In her article, 100 Ways to Indigenize and Decolonize Academic Programs and Courses, University of Regina Indigenous scholar Shanine Peet sees the indigenization of academic spaces as transformative. Indigenizing academic institutions, she says, is understood as the transformation of the existing academy by including Indigenous knowledges, voices, critiques, scholars, students, and materials, as well as the establishment of physical and epistemic spaces that facilitate the ethical stewardship of a plurality of Indigenous knowledges and practices so thoroughly as to constitute an essential element of the university. It is not limited to Indigenous people, but encompasses all students and faculty for the benefit of our academic integrity and our social viability. So what does it mean to transform academic institutions and spaces? Colonial academic structures that historically ignored or silenced Indigenous voices and knowledge. What are the lessons we can learn from the creation of the wǝtë øbʔaltx၀? So I have 4 points that I want to go through. And the first point is, provide a welcoming space for Indigenous students. Indigenous students often encounter racism and microaggressions on college campuses, and these experiences with racism lead them to feel they do not belong in college. The wǝtë øbʔaltx၀provides a space where the UW Indigenous community members feel culturally connected, where our communities and tribal values are understood and valued, and where collective traumas associated with colonization and the perpetuation of settler colonialism are met with support and cultural understanding. Indigenous students also face a lack of Indigenous faculty, students, and staff. Many students find academe unwelcoming because of the lack of peers or finding a place on campus where they feel they belong. This was the main impetus for us moving forward with this project, to create a sense of place on the UW campus where Indigenous students and faculty and staff feel welcome, to feel at home, to feel like we belong here. The wǝtë øbʔaltx၀has created that space, a home away from home for our Indigenous students. And our wǝtë øbʔaltx၀staff and Indigenous faculty provide emotional and academic support and resources to help our students build relationships, reinforce their Indigenous identity, and foster a sense of belonging here on our campus. While we hope the wǝtë øbʔaltx၀would serve as an important beacon in attracting more Indigenous students, as well as faculty and staff, we recognize that having this space is not enough. From 2016 to 2020, our American Indian Alaska Native undergraduate student numbers have basically stayed the same at around 350 undergraduate students who identify as American Indian Alaska Native. And for those students who identified as American Indian Alaska Native and another ethnicity, this number has stayed at around 500. And I'm sorry, I don't have the statistics for graduate students. We need to look at more ways to attract Indigenous students to the University of Washington. How can we eliminate what may seem to be barriers and create more of a welcoming environment and develop a better system to recruit and retain Indigenous students? How can we better connect to tribal communities to let them know that UW is an inviting place for their youth? Honoring the regional Native American tribes, peoples, and cultures. It is important to understand that the lands academic institutions occupy are the homelands of Indigenous peoples. As Indigenous peoples, we have powerful cultural, spiritual, and historical connections to our lands. In our effort to honor Coast Salish connections and relationships to these lands, we created a space that honored this relationship through this coastal architectural longhouse structure. We understood that this would be a space for all students, and students from many different tribal backgrounds, but this is Coast Salish land, and we wanted to respect that. Increase the visibility of Indigenous scholars and scholarship. Bringing more Indigenous faculty and students to the campus is central to this process. The effort to enroll more Indigenous students and hire more Indigenous faculty and staff upholds and recognizes tribal sovereignty, and that tribes have a government-to-government relationship with the federal and state governments, distinguishing Native Americans from other racial and ethnic groups. I began teaching here in American Indian Studies in the fall of 2001. While we have seen the AIS grow from a center to a program to a department where we offer 2 minors and a major, we have not seen the same growth in our faculty. In fact, today, we have half the faculty we had when I started. Increasing AIS faculty will significantly contribute to indigenizing the UW campus and recognize the importance of classes that center Indigenous theories, pedagogies, ontologies, and methodologies. Growth in our faculty will allow us to teach more courses and contribute to a vision that many of us here at the UW have, that one day the university will require all students to take a Northwest Indigenous Studies course. And that our courses are not just part of a diversity credit. We need more faculty to do this. Growth in Indigenous faculty needs to take place across campus in other departments so that Indigenous students will want to attend these programs, and both students and Indigenous faculty will feel accepted and welcomed into these programs and departments by a community of peers and colleagues. So to truly indigenize academic institutions, we need to include Indigenous peoples as students, faculty, and staff, to include Indigenous scholarship, perspective, concepts, and practices into curricula, and create spaces such as the wǝtë that are dedicated to Indigenous use and Indigenous knowledge. Indigenous lives are shaped by our connections to community, and we can make UW a place where similar cross-cultural connections can be nurtured. Make the UW accessible to the larger Indigenous community by developing meaningful partnerships that honor tribal sovereignty. The creation of the wǝtë has nurtured a campus environment that honors Coast Salish cultures and provides a visible symbol of the UW's commitment to respectful collaboration with the regional tribes and all Indigenous peoples and cultures. Higher education is viewed as an important tool for Indigenous sovereignty and nation building. Hence, it is important for institutions of higher education to develop meaningful partnerships that honor the sovereign status of Native nations. These partnerships can be mutually beneficial for Indigenous students, tribal nations, and the communities, institutions of higher education, and society at large. Engaging with tribal nations and communities provides opportunities for institutions to garner input from the communities about the needs of both their students and their respective communities. We have seen development in this area here at the UW with the creation of the Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies in the fall of 2008, and with the annual Living Breath of wǝtë Indigenous Food Symposium that I founded in 2013. We have had many events here at the wǝtë that bring together our campus community with the larger regional as well as national Indigenous community. The wǝtë will continue to open the doors to working with tribes and Indigenous communities, creating spaces where we can come together in respectful collaboration. UW can continue this engagement through the Native American Advisory Board, with the wǝtë exemplifying the spirit of sharing, cooperation, and commitment to Indigenous histories, knowledges, and worldviews, and to the local and national Indigenous communities. The more we build these cross-community interactions, the more we'll grow the Indigenous influence on campus, which will benefit all members of our UW community. Connecting the wǝtë Intellectual House to my research and scholarship. I would like to end my talk by discussing how the wǝtë connects to my scholarship. And I frame this around our Nuu-chah-nulth philosophy of Hishukish Tsawak. Everything is interconnected. Since starting my position at the University of Washington in 2001, I have dedicated a lot of my time to creating Indigenous intellectual spaces that nurture social, institutional, and community infrastructure. I see this community-based work as building intellectual and social capital, and extends the impact of my scholarly publications to making real change for the University of Washington community. In an effort to build infrastructure at the University of Washington that indigenizes academic spaces, I dedicated my service to the development and implementation of the wǝtë Intellectual House, and through the annual Living Breath of wǝtë Indigenous Food Symposium. I saw the wǝtë Intellectual House as more than just a building, but as an extension of my scholarship, and as a way to pay homage to the Indigenous peoples on whose ancestral homelands the campus is situated. When doubters challenged the viability of this project, I stood my ground as committee chair and drew upon both my scholarship and a deep body of Indigenous scholarship to educate them about the absolutely necessity for this space. The wǝtë serves as a unique and vital hub for bringing us all together, people from many different diverse backgrounds, committed to producing the knowledge in this space in a spirit of sharing, cooperation, and collaboration. In 2013, I organized the Living Breath of wǝtë Indigenous Food Symposium in anticipation of the opening of the wǝtë. This symposium symbolized the spirit of the Intellectual House and embodied the essence of the scholarly work envisioned, the work that we'd be doing here and are doing in this space. Specifically, the Living Breath Symposium serves to foster dialogue and build collaborative networks around Indigenous foods, food sovereignty, and health and wellness, which are at the heart of my scholarship. The annual symposium, now in its 9th year, continues to bring a diverse community of scholars, Indigenous leaders, elders, youth, and others who have an interest in Indigenous food sovereignty and foodways to promote health and wellness in our communities. The success of this first symposium, and I have a photo, it was in Kane Hall because we didn't have the wǝtë then. It drew over 200 attendees, and it moved me to make this an annual event. This symposium now draws over 300 people each year and has cultivated a regional, national, and international community of people who come from as far away as Aotearoa, New Zealand, and who are all connected in the common goal of strengthening our Indigenous food traditions and creating strong, vibrant, and healthy Indigenous communities. One foundational aspect of my team has been the mentorship that has taken place among our committee, which consists of associate and assistant professors, graduate and undergraduate students, and members of the regional, tribal, and urban-based Indigenous communities. In short, the creation of both the wǝtë Intellectual House and the Living Breath of wǝtë Symposium is proof of concept that we can indigenize academic spaces, and that by doing so, we enhance the community both within the University of Washington and between the University of Washington and other Indigenous communities. Moreover, these indigenized academic spaces contribute to the university's mission by making the scholarship produced and shared in these spaces culturally relevant and useful to Indigenous peoples within the state, across the country, and around the world. In closing, formulating this talk made me really think about how indigenizing the University of Washington campus is centered within the concept of health, and how the wǝtë has created a space where healthy and respectful relationships between the Indigenous campus community, the larger regional Indigenous community, and campus administrators can occur. All the people who were involved in this project, and there are many of you in here today, can you please stand up? Everyone who had some role in this project, can you please stand up? I raise my hands to all of you. Clarita. So, in closing, let's look at phase 1 of the wǝtë as the starting point, not the end point, in indigenizing our UW campus. Let's continue this journey, and through respectful dialogue, we can continue to break down academic institutional barriers and realize a dream where Indigenous voices will be included and welcomed in the development of institutional policies, procedures, and practices, because Hishukish Tsawak, everything is interconnected. Kleko, thank you.
Join me again in thanking Dr. Cote for a wonderful and informative talk. Thank you, Dr. Cote.